Welcome on board, chosen one. Yeah, you. The one who swore they'd never let anyone in again. The one who built walls so thick even you forgot what vulnerability felt like. The one who mastered the art of being alone without being lonely. And now the universe is laughing because it's about to flip your entire script. Your next relationship isn't going to be what you planned. It won't be who you expected. And when it happens, when this person walks into your atmosphere like they've been holding the other half of your frequency this whole time, everyone around you is going to lose their minds. They're going to question it, they're going to doubt it, they're going to whisper behind closed doors about how it doesn't make sense, how you two don't match, how this person isn't your type. And you know what the wildest part is? They'll be absolutely right. This person won't be your type, because your type has been the problem this whole time. Let's get something straight before we go deeper. The version of you that's reading this right now has survived relationship earthquakes that would have buried most people. You've been betrayed by people who swore loyalty. You've been abandoned by the ones who promised forever. You've been gaslit into questioning your own reality by people who couldn't handle your truth. You've given chances to the wrong souls and watched them waste every single one like your heart was a clearance sale. And somewhere in all that wreckage you made a decision. You decided that being alone was safer than being destroyed again. You decided that your peace was worth more than any temporary connection. You decided that if love was going to cost you your sanity, then loneliness was the better investment. Smart move, actually. Self-preservation always is. But here's what you didn't plan for. Here's what nobody tells you when you finally master being whole on your own. The universe doesn't reward you with more solitude. It rewards you with exactly what you needed to become before you could handle what's coming next. Press that like button and subscribe right now, because this message is about to reveal something your soul already knows but your mind keeps trying to logic away. Hit that notification bell, because what I'm about to break down isn't just about your next relationship. It's about why your past had to burn down completely before the right person could even find you. And trust me, when this person shows up, you're going to need to remember every word of this video. Your enemies, your doubters, your exes, who told you that you'd never find better, they're all watching from a distance right now. They're waiting for you to fail again, waiting for you to pick another toxic situation so they can feel validated in their decision to leave. Let this video be the evidence they'll scroll past in complete silence, while trying to figure out how you ended up with someone who actually matches your evolved energy. Back to you. Here's what nobody prepared you for about your next relationship. This person is going to scare you. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're safe. Not because they're unpredictable, but because they're consistent. Not because they don't see your flaws, but because they see them and stay anyway. This is going to mess with every defense mechanism you spent years perfecting. You've built walls. This person isn't going to climb them or break them down. They're going to sit outside those walls and simply exist until you realize the fortress you built isn't protecting you anymore. It's isolating you. And when you finally crack open that door, even just an inch, this person won't rush in. They'll wait. They'll respect your pace. They'll understand that your hesitation isn't rejection, it's survival instinct. And that patience, that calm understanding, is going to undo you in ways trauma never could. Number one, they won't be your pattern. This is where everything you thought you knew gets shattered. Your next relationship won't look like your last 5. It won't feel like that intense connection that burned fast and crashed harder. It won't have the drama you once confused for passion or the chaos you mistakenly called chemistry. This person is going to show up so differently that your brain won't even register them as a romantic possibility at first. You've been conditioned to recognize love through pain, to measure connection by how much it hurts, to validate relationships by how hard you have to fight for them. This person is going to break that programming completely. Think about your pattern for a second. The emotionally unavailable ones who kept you chasing. The charismatic ones who made you feel special until they made you feel invisible. The ones who loved you when it was convenient and disappeared when you actually needed them. The ones who saw your depth and got scared, so they tried to make you shallow enough to tolerate. Every single one of them had something in common. They couldn't handle the real you. They wanted the edited version, the convenient version, the version that didn't ask for too much or expect basic decency. Your next person? They're going to want the unfiltered version you stopped showing people years ago. They're going to ask about your trauma and not flinch. They're going to hear about your fears and not use them against you. They're going to see you at your worst and not threaten to leave every time you're not perfect. This is going to confuse everyone who knows your history. Your friends are going to say things like, "They seem nice, but are you sure? This doesn't seem like your usual type." And you're going to realize that's exactly the point. Your usual type destroyed you repeatedly. Your usual type taught you that love required suffering. Your usual type convinced you that if it wasn't complicated, it wasn't real. This new person is going to be so secure in themselves that your insecurity won't trigger them. They're going to be so healed that your wounds won't scare them away. They're going to be so consistent that your fear of abandonment will have nothing to feed on, and that consistency is going to feel foreign at first. It's going to feel boring compared to the roller coaster you're used to, but boring is what healthy feels like when you've only known chaos. Boring is what peace looks like when you've only experienced war. Your next relationship won't have the red flags you learned to ignore. There won't be the hot and cold behavior you normalized. There won't be the mind games you convinced yourself were just part of love. There won't be the constant anxiety about whether you're too much or not enough. This person is going to show up and stay shown up. They're going to communicate clearly instead of making you play detective with their mixed signals. They're going to respect your boundaries instead of testing them constantly. They're going to add to your life instead of demanding you sacrifice everything for theirs. And this stability is going to feel so unfamiliar that you'll question if it's real. You'll wait for the other shoe to drop. You'll search for hidden agendas that don't exist. You'll test them just to see if they'll leave like everyone else did. And when they pass every test by simply being genuine, that's when your walls will start to crack. Number 2, they're showing up now for a reason. Listen closely, because this is where the universe reveals its twisted sense of humor. This person couldn't have entered your life 3 years ago. They couldn't have found you before you stopped looking. They couldn't have reached you when you were still holding on to the hope that your last situation would magically fix itself. The timing of this connection isn't random, it's strategic. It's intentional. It's the universe waiting until you finally became the version of yourself that could recognize real love instead of just familiar pain. Think about who you were in your last relationship. Think about what you tolerated, what you accepted, what you convinced yourself was enough. Now think about who you are today, after all the healing, the therapy, the sleepless nights, processing everything you survived. You wouldn't even recognize that old version of yourself anymore. You wouldn't respect them. This person is arriving now because you finally stopped performing. You stopped twisting yourself into shapes that fit into someone else's brokenness. You stopped explaining your worth to people who were determined to undervalue you. You stopped accepting crumbs and calling it a meal. You stopped making excuses for people who weren't even trying. You stopped believing that love required you to suffer in silence. And the moment you truly stopped, the moment you actually meant it when you said you'd rather be alone than accept less, that's when you became magnetic to a completely different frequency. This is what your exes will never understand. They'll see you with this new person and wonder what they have that your exes didn't. The answer is simple. Your exes had access to a version of you that was still learning, still hoping, still willing to compromise your peace for the illusion of love. This new person gets the upgraded version, the one who knows their worth, the one who won't settle, the one who would walk away from anything that doesn't feel right, even if it looks right on paper. The universe had to let you get your heart broken enough times to build immunity. It had to let you waste time on the wrong people so you'd recognize the right one instantly. It had to let you sit in loneliness long enough to understand that being alone isn't the punishment. Being with the wrong person is. Every failed relationship, every unanswered text, every moment you felt disposable. It wasn't the universe being cruel. It was the universe teaching you what you're not willing to accept anymore. And now that you've finally learned the lesson, now that you've finally stopped repeating the same patterns, the test is over. The reward is about to walk through your door. And when they do, everyone who knew the old you is going to be shocked. They're going to ask how you suddenly got so lucky. They're going to wonder why this person chose you, and you're going to know the truth. You didn't get lucky. You became ready. There's a difference. Your friends might warn you to be careful. Your family might question the timing. Your exes might suddenly remember your number. But you're going to feel something you've never felt before. Certainty without anxiety, connection without chaos, love without losing yourself. This person isn't showing up to complete you because you're already complete. They're showing up to match you, to walk beside you, to respect the journey it took for you to become this solid. And everyone who watched you survive your worst relationships is about to watch you thrive in your healthiest one. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them realize they fumbled someone who was always meant for better. You've spent years questioning why love hurt so much. You're about to spend years understanding why it was supposed to feel this natural all along. The universe doesn't play favorites, but it does reward people who refuse to settle. And you, chosen one, stopped settling the moment you chose yourself. Everything that's coming next is just the natural consequence of that decision. Number 3, the reaction is going to be louder than the relationship. Brace yourself, because when people find out who you're with, the commentary is going to be unhinged. Your relationship is going to become everyone's business, everyone's opinion, everyone's unsolicited analysis. And here's the uncomfortable truth about why. Your happiness makes people confront their own settling. Your choice is going to highlight their compromises. Your relationship is going to be the mirror nobody asked for, but everyone needed. The people who are genuinely happy for you will be quiet. They'll smile, nod, and move on with their lives. But the ones who have something to say, the ones who suddenly have concerns about your choices, those are the ones sitting in relationships they're trying to convince themselves are good enough. Those are the ones who sacrificed what they wanted for what was available. Those are the ones who chose security over chemistry, convenience over connection, familiarity over growth. Think about it. Why would someone who's truly content in their own relationship care about the details of yours? They wouldn't. But someone who's lying to themselves about their own situation will analyze yours like it's a thesis. They'll point out the age difference if there is one. They'll mention the different backgrounds. They'll question the timeline. They'll bring up your past like it defines your future, and every word they say will be a confession about their own unspoken regrets. When people say things like, "Don't you think it's too soon?" what they're really saying is, "I stayed in my last situation too long, and watching you move on makes me feel stupid." When they ask, "Are you sure about this person?" what they're really asking is, "How did you get brave enough to choose something I'm too scared to look for?" When they comment, "This doesn't seem like you," what they mean is, "I'm uncomfortable that you evolved past the version of you I was used to controlling." Your exes are going to have the loudest silent reactions. They won't say anything directly, but they'll watch your every move from whatever distance they're lurking at. They'll scroll through your posts looking for cracks in your happiness. They'll analyze your new person's photos, trying to find flaws they can cling to. They'll tell themselves that this new relationship won't last, because accepting that it might would mean accepting that they weren't the problem with timing or compatibility. They were just the problem. And that's a truth most people's egos can't survive. Some of them will even try to come back. Not because they want you, but because seeing you happy with someone else breaks the narrative they built to justify leaving. They convinced themselves you'd never find better. They told themselves you needed them more than they needed you. They believed their own lie that you'd always be there waiting if they ever changed their mind. Your new relationship destroys all of that. It proves they were replaceable. It proves you weren't the problem. It proves that everything they said you'd never find was exactly what you found the moment you stopped looking for it in people who couldn't provide it. The shock isn't really about who you chose. It's about what your choice reveals. It reveals that you leveled up. It reveals that you have standards now. It reveals that you're no longer accessible to anyone who isn't bringing the same energy you bring. And for people who knew you when you were still figuring that out, when you were still trying to make broken people whole, seeing you with someone who actually matches you is disorienting. They're not used to seeing you treated well. They're not used to seeing you relaxed. They're not used to seeing you not fighting for basic respect and affection. This new version of you, the one that's actually happy, is threatening to everyone who benefited from you not knowing your worth. So let them be shocked. Let them talk. Let them analyze and question and project their insecurities onto your peace. Because while they're busy trying to find problems in your relationship, you'll be too busy living in a love that doesn't require defense, explanation, or validation from people who couldn't even maintain their own happiness. Number 4, they see you. Not the version you perform, not the personality you present, not the edited highlights you show the world. They see the messy, complicated, still healing human underneath all of it. And they stay. This is the part your past relationships could never handle. You've always been too much and not enough simultaneously, depending on what someone needed from you in that moment. Too emotional but not emotional enough. Too independent but too needy. Too guarded but too vulnerable. Every single criticism was just someone else's inability to hold space for your full humanity. This person is different. They don't need you to be less complicated. They don't need you to shrink your intensity. They don't need you to pretend you're healed from things you're still processing. They meet you exactly where you are. And somehow that presence alone makes you feel safer than any promise ever did. You know what real love looks like. It's not the grand gestures or poetic declarations. It's someone noticing you've gone quiet and not making it about them. It's someone seeing you spiral and not running from the turbulence. It's someone understanding that your walls exist for a reason and never making you feel guilty for taking time to lower them. This person is going to do something your exes couldn't. They're going to make you feel safe enough to stop performing. You won't have to wake up and decide which version of yourself to be today. You won't have to monitor your emotions to make sure you're not being too much. You won't have to question if your vulnerability is going to be used as ammunition later. For the first time, you're going to exist in a relationship without constantly calculating if you're lovable enough in this moment. And that freedom, that exhale you didn't know you were holding, that's what love was supposed to feel like all along. This person sees your damage and doesn't try to fix you like a project. They don't approach you with savior energy or try to therapist their way through your trauma. They simply acknowledge that you've survived things that changed you, and they're okay existing beside someone who's still integrating those experiences. They don't need you to be healed. They need you to be honest. And somehow that lack of pressure creates the exact environment where actual healing happens. You've spent years with people who wanted the finished product. This person wants the process. They want the 3 a.m. conversations where you're still figuring things out. They want the messy middle parts where you're not Instagram perfect. They want the reality of you, the unfiltered human experience, the version you were convinced would send people running. And when they don't run, when they lean in closer instead, you're going to realize that every person who left wasn't rejecting you. They were selecting themselves out of a depth they weren't equipped to handle. What makes this relationship different isn't that this person is perfect. It's that they're present. They show up. They stay shown up. They don't disappear when things get hard or when you're not fun to be around. They don't withdraw affection as punishment or use silence as a weapon. They don't make you guess where you stand or play games with your security. They communicate, they're clear, they're consistent, and if you've only known love through chaos, this stability is going to feel revolutionary. It's going to feel too good to be true because your nervous system has been trained to recognize love through adrenaline and anxiety. Peace feels foreign. But foreign doesn't mean wrong, it just means different. It means you're finally experiencing what you've always deserved but never believed could exist for someone like you. This person is going to prove that the right relationship doesn't require you to lose yourself to maintain it. The right person doesn't need you to be anyone other than exactly who you are, and that acceptance, that unconditional presence, is going to heal parts of you that you forgot were broken. Number 5, your relationship is going to trigger everyone who's settled. This is the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about but everyone feels. Most people in relationships aren't actually happy. They're comfortable, they're committed, they're financially entangled. They've invested too much time to walk away now. They've convinced themselves that this is what mature love looks like. This quiet resignation, this peaceful coexistence where passion died years ago, but stability remained. And then you show up. You with your new relationship that still has spark. You with your partner who still looks at you like you're the only person in the room. You with your obvious chemistry that makes other couples remember what they used to have before they killed it with complacency and resentment. Your happiness is going to make people angry. Not at you specifically, but at the reminder of what they gave up or never had. There's going to be that one friend who keeps saying things like, "Just wait until the honeymoon phase ends." They'll dismiss your joy as temporary, as naive, as something that can't possibly last. What they're really saying is, "My honeymoon phase ended and turned into disappointment, so yours has to as well." There's going to be the family member who warned you not to move too fast, who questions if you really know this person, who plants seeds of doubt disguised as concern. What they're really doing is projecting their own relationship regrets onto your clean slate. There's going to be the ex-friend who suddenly distances themselves without explanation. They can't articulate it, but watching you thrive in love makes them confront the fact that they settled for someone who gives them anxiety instead of peace. Your relationship doesn't have to be perfect to trigger people. It just has to be real. It just has to show genuine connection, actual respect, visible affection. That alone is enough to make people realize what they don't have. And instead of confronting their own situation, they'll try to find flaws in yours. Watch how many people suddenly become relationship experts when discussing your connection. People who can't even communicate with their own partners will have advice about your communication. People who haven't felt genuine attraction to their spouse in years will question your chemistry. People who stay in dead bedrooms will comment on your physical connection. It's wild how confident people become about your relationship when their own is falling apart behind closed doors. The criticism isn't about you. It's never about you. It's about them being forced to see their own compromise reflected back through your choice to not settle. You're living proof that waiting for right instead of accepting available was the move. You're evidence that healing yourself first and then finding love is better than finding love and hoping it heals you. You're the example of what's possible when you choose yourself over comfort. And that example is threatening to every person who chose different and is now locked into the consequences of that choice. Here's what's going to happen. Some people will double down on defending their situations. They'll start posting more about their relationships, performing happiness on social media, overcompensating for the disconnect everyone can feel but nobody mentions. Some people will quietly reevaluate their own relationships and either work to fix them or finally admit they're not fixable. And some people will resent you. They'll distance themselves. They'll find reasons to be critical. They'll convince themselves that your relationship can't be as good as it looks because accepting that it is means accepting that they chose wrong. Let them. Your relationships isn't a political campaign that needs everyone's vote. It's not a public spectacle that requires audience approval. It's a private experience between two people who found each other after they both stopped looking. The people who matter will be genuinely happy for you. The people who aren't will reveal exactly where they are in their own journey. Either way, you win. You get the relationship, they get the lesson, and everyone moves forward holding the truth they chose to accept. Number 6, you're going to become unrecognizable and they'll hate it. Buckle up, because this is where your evolution gets loud. When you're in the right relationship with someone who actually sees you and values you, you don't stay the same. You can't. You start growing in directions you didn't even know existed. You start prioritizing differently. You start moving differently. You start showing up in the world as a completely different frequency. And everyone who knew the old you, the struggling you, the settling you, the suffering you, they're going to feel some type of way about the upgrade. You're going to start saying no to things you used to say yes to out of obligation. You're going to start setting boundaries with people you used to let walk all over you. You're going to start investing your time and energy into your relationship and your growth, instead of into friendships that were always one-sided. And the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries are going to call this change negative. They're going to say you've changed in a bad way. What they mean is you've changed in a way that no longer serves them. Remember when you used to be available 24/7 for everyone's emergencies, but nobody was ever available for yours? That's ending. Remember when you used to overextend yourself, trying to prove your worth to people who never valued you anyway? That's done. Remember when you used to accept disrespect because you were afraid of being alone? That person doesn't exist anymore. This new relationship isn't making you different. It's making you brave enough to finally be yourself. It's giving you the security you need to stop performing for people's approval. It's providing the foundation you need to stop accepting crumbs from people who should have been giving you the whole meal. And everyone who got used to the version of you that tolerated their nonsense is about to get really uncomfortable with the version of you that doesn't. Your relationship is going to change how you show up everywhere. You're going to stop entertaining drama because your peace is too valuable now. You're going to stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. You're going to stop carrying emotional weight for people who refuse to do their own healing work. You're going to become selective about who has access to you, protective of your energy, and unapologetic about maintaining the life you've built. This transformation is going to cost you some relationships. People who were only in your life because you were convenient are going to fade out. Friends who only called when they needed something are going to suddenly disappear. Family members who relied on you being the emotional dumping ground are going to feel abandoned when you stop absorbing their chaos. And every single loss is going to be an addition by subtraction. You're not losing real connections. You're losing energy vampires who disguised themselves as important people in your life. The right relationship doesn't isolate you from healthy connections. It illuminates which connections were never healthy to begin with. You're going to look around one day and realize your circle got smaller, but your peace got bigger. You're going to notice that you have fewer friends but better friends. You're going to see that you talk to family less but stress about them less too. And while outsiders might call this isolation, anyone who's done their own healing work will recognize it as liberation. Your transformation isn't going to be subtle. It's going to be visible, undeniable, threatening to everyone who stayed stagnant. You're going to dress differently because you're not trying to hide anymore. You're going to speak differently because you're not afraid of your own voice anymore. You're going to move differently because you know where you're going now. And people are going to have opinions. They're going to say, "You're acting brand new." Good, you are. The old you was exhausted from carrying everyone else's burdens while ignoring your own needs. This new you is healed enough to know that you can't pour from an empty cup and selfish enough to keep your cup full. They're going to say you think you're better than everyone, also accurate. You're better than the version of yourself who accepted less. You're better than the version who stayed small to make others comfortable. You're better than the version who apologized for taking up space. This isn't arrogance, it's awareness. And if that makes people uncomfortable, they can join the long list of people whose opinions stopped mattering the moment you started respecting yourself. Number 7. The connection runs deeper than anyone understands. Here's what people are going to miss when they judge your relationship from the outside. They're going to see the surface level stuff, the dates, the photos, the public displays of affection. They're going to make assumptions based on what they can observe. But what they'll never see is the actual foundation. They don't see the 2 a.m. conversations that lasted until sunrise. They don't see the way this person held space for your trauma without making it about them. They don't see the small moments of understanding that happened in complete silence. They don't see how this person learned your patterns, your triggers, your tells. They don't see how they adjusted their energy to match what you needed without you having to explain it every time. They don't see the depth. And because they don't see it, they'll assume it doesn't exist. Let them assume. What you and this person have doesn't require witnesses to validate it. It exists in the private moments nobody else has access to. This person knows things about you that you've never told anyone else. Not because you sat down and gave them your entire history, but because they paid attention. They noticed the way you change subjects when certain topics come up. They caught the brief moment of pain that flashes across your face when specific memories surface. They picked up on the small behaviors that signal you're not okay even when you say you are. And instead of using that information to manipulate you like your exes did, they use it to love you better. They use it to create safety. They use it to show you that being fully seen doesn't have to lead to being fully destroyed. This level of attunement is rare. Most people don't pay this kind of attention because most people are too focused on themselves to truly see another person. This person sees you, not the version you present to the world, but the version you hide from it. And somehow that visibility doesn't feel invasive, it feels like relief. Like you can finally stop performing the exhausting role of being fine when you're not. The depth of this connection is going to make surface-level interactions feel even more hollow. You're going to sit through conversations with people and feel the difference between being heard and being understood. You're going to notice how many people just wait for their turn to talk instead of actually listening. You're going to see how rare it is for someone to ask a follow-up question or remember something you mentioned weeks ago. This relationship is going to raise your standards for all relationships. Friendships, family dynamics, professional connections, everything. Because once you experience what it feels like to be truly known by someone, you can't unsee how many people in your life don't actually know you at all. And you're going to start being okay with that. You're going to stop trying to force depth with people who are content with shallow. You're going to stop explaining yourself to people who aren't trying to understand you. You're going to stop seeking validation from people who couldn't validate you even if you handed them a manual. What people don't understand about your relationship is that it's not built on attraction or chemistry or any of the things they can see. Those things exist, obviously. But the foundation is built on something more permanent. It's built on respect, on consistent presence, on the kind of trust that develops when someone shows up for you repeatedly without an agenda. It's built on the small things that don't make good Instagram captions, but make great lifelong partnerships. The way they remember how you take your coffee, the way they check in during your stressful workdays, the way they know when to push you and when to just hold you, the way they celebrate your wins without feeling threatened by your success, the way they handle your bad days without making you feel like a burden. This is the stuff that matters. This is the stuff that lasts. And this is the stuff people who are still measuring relationships by intensity instead of consistency will never value until it's too late. Number 8, the speed is going to make people uncomfortable. Whether you move fast or take it slow, someone is going to have an opinion about your pace. If things progress quickly, they'll say you're rushing, that you don't know this person, that you're being reckless with your heart. If you take your time, they'll question if it's real, if there's actual commitment, if you're just wasting time that could be spent with someone else. Here's the truth they'll never admit. The pace of your relationship has nothing to do with them. It's not their timeline to judge. But people love to project their own relationship timeline onto others, as if there's a universal correct speed for love. There isn't. Every relationship operates on its own frequency, its own rhythm, its own logic that only makes sense to the two people living it. Your relationship might move fast because you're both healed enough to recognize compatibility when you see it, or it might move slow because you both value building a foundation before adding flaws. Either way, the speed is right for you. That's the only measurement that matters. But watch how people react when you move at a pace they don't understand. If you move in together after 3 months, they'll call it impulsive. Never mind that you spent every single day together anyway and paying 2 rents was stupid. If you get engaged after a year, they'll say it's too soon. Never mind that you both knew what you wanted and saw no point in dragging out the inevitable. If you wait 3 years to get engaged, they'll question if your partner is serious. Never mind that you're both building careers and a solid foundation before adding legal paperwork to the mix. The timeline critics are everywhere, and they all have opinions based on absolutely nothing relevant to your actual situation. Most of the people judging your timeline are in relationships they're not even happy in. They followed the traditional pace, did everything right according to society's script, and ended up miserable anyway. But instead of questioning if following arbitrary timelines is the problem, they're going to project their regrets onto your different approach. Here's what they're not considering. You and this person might have been through enough failed relationships to know exactly what you're looking for and what you're not willing to tolerate. That clarity speeds things up. You might have both done the work on yourselves, which means you're not bringing the same baggage and dysfunction that would require years to sort through. That makes commitment easier. You might have both reached a point in your lives where you know what matters and what doesn't. That eliminates the guessing games and uncertainty that drag timelines out. The speed isn't reckless, it's efficiency born from experience. But people who haven't done their own healing work won't understand that. They'll measure your months against their years and assume they're doing it right because they're going slower. Meanwhile, slow doesn't mean healthy. Sometimes, slow just means two people who are too scared to fully commit are prolonging the inevitable ending by calling it taking their time. Your timeline is perfect for you because you're the one living it. You're the one feeling the connection, assessing the compatibility, making the decisions. Everyone else is watching from the outside, with incomplete information and their own biases coloring their perception. They don't know what you two talk about in private. They don't see how you handle conflict or how you support each other's goals. They don't feel the security you feel or understand the certainty you have. They're judging based on external timelines that have nothing to do with internal readiness. So let them question, let them warn you, let them share their unsolicited opinions about how relationships should develop. While they're busy creating spreadsheets of appropriate dating milestones, you'll be busy building something real with someone who's on the same page without needing to consult anyone else's manual. And years from now, when your relationship is still solid and their concern was completely unfounded, they won't apologize. They'll just find something new to judge. That's what people do when they're uncomfortable with others choosing differently than they did. Number 9. The person you are in this relationship would confuse everyone from your past. This might be the most important part to understand. You're not the same person you were in your previous relationships. You can't be. Every relationship you've survived changed you, taught you, shaped you into someone new. The version of you that existed in your last relationship was still learning boundaries, still accepting breadcrumbs, still believing that love required suffering. That person doesn't exist anymore. They evolved. They upgraded. They became the version of you that could attract and maintain a healthy relationship. And that new version is going to show up differently than anyone expects. Your exes knew a version of you that chased, that begged, that fought for scraps of attention and affection. They knew the version that would ignore red flags and accept disrespect because being alone felt worse than being mistreated. If they saw you in this new relationship, they wouldn't recognize you. The way you move now, with certainty and self-respect, would confuse them. The way you set boundaries without guilt would seem cold to them. The way you walk away from anything that doesn't serve you would look unrecognizable compared to the person who used to stay and beg for change that never came. Your old friends knew a version of you that was always available, always accommodating, always putting everyone else's needs before your own. They knew the version that would drop everything to help anyone who called, even people who would never do the same for you. In this new relationship, you've learned to prioritize differently. You've learned that your relationship deserves your time and energy. You've learned that saying no to others so you can say yes to your partner isn't selfish, it's necessary. And the people who benefited from the old version of you are going to call this change negative. They're going to say you've become distant, that you've changed, that your relationship is isolating you from your friends. What they mean is, your relationship is making it impossible for them to continue benefiting from your inability to set boundaries. They're not upset about who you've become. They're upset about what they've lost access to. And that's not your problem to fix. Even your family is going to notice differences. The version of you that used to absorb everyone's problems and try to fix everyone's lives has been replaced by someone who knows that you can't save people who don't want to be saved. You're going to stop being the family therapist, the mediator, the one who sacrifices their own peace to maintain everyone else's. And some family members are going to struggle with that. They're going to guilt you, call you selfish, question why you've become so cold. But you haven't become cold. You've become boundaried. There's a difference. You're still loving, still supportive, still present. But you're no longer available for emotional dumping sessions that leave you drained while the other person feels better. You're no longer attending every family function that requires you to shrink yourself or bite your tongue to keep the peace. You're no longer pretending toxic family dynamics are normal just because they're familiar. This version of you is protective of your peace and selective about what you allow into your space. That's maturity, not meanness. But to people who benefited from your lack of boundaries, maturity looks like betrayal. This is the version of you that your partner gets to experience. The healed version, the boundaried version. The version that knows their worth and won't negotiate on it. The version that communicates clearly, loves fully, and leaves quickly if the situation turns toxic. The version that doesn't need external validation because their internal sense of self is finally solid. This is who you were always meant to become, and this relationship is the first one where you get to show up as that person from day one instead of having to figure it out in the middle of chaos. Your partner doesn't have to deal with the version of you that was still learning. They get the benefits of all those painful lessons without having to be the one who taught them. And that's exactly how it should be. The people who hurt you taught you what you wouldn't accept. This person gets to experience who you became because of those lessons. It's not fair in the traditional sense, but it's perfect in the way the universe works. Everything you survived was preparing you for this, for someone who could match your healed energy, for someone who deserved the version of you that finally knows better. Number 10, the quiet confidence is going to be mistaken for arrogance. Here's what's about to happen that nobody warned you about. When you're finally in a relationship that feels right, when you're with someone who actually adds to your life instead of complicating it, you develop a particular kind of peace. It's not loud, it's not performative. It doesn't need constant validation or public displays to prove it exists. It just is. And that quiet confidence, that self-assured peace, is going to make people uncomfortable. They're used to seeing you question yourself, doubt your choices, seek opinions and approval from everyone around you. This new energy where you just know, where you don't need to consult the group chat or post for validation, where you move with certainty. It's going to read as arrogance to people who are still stuck in the chaos you escape. But it's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's what happens when you finally stop performing for an audience and start living for yourself. People are going to mistake your lack of explanation for smugness. They're going to see you not engaging with their questions and criticisms and assume you think you're above them. The truth is simpler. You've realized that explaining your happiness to unhappy people is pointless. You've learned that defending your relationship to people who don't have healthy relationships themselves is a waste of energy. You've understood that the people who get it will get it, and the people who don't get it don't matter. This isn't arrogance. This is discernment. This is you finally understanding that your relationship doesn't exist to be understood by others. It exists to be lived by you. And living it doesn't require a publicity campaign, or a defensive strategy, or a PowerPoint presentation explaining why this person is right for you. It requires nothing but your presence and their presence, and the private understanding you've built between you. Everything else is noise. Watch how people react to your peace. The ones who are genuinely secure in their own lives will be happy for you. They'll see your calm and recognize it as a sign that you found something real. But the ones who are struggling, the ones who are lying to themselves about their own situations, they're going to be bothered by your contentment. Your peace makes them confront their chaos. Your certainty highlights their doubt. Your quiet confidence exposes their need for constant external validation. They can't fathom being this secure in a relationship because they've never experienced it. So they'll assume you're faking it, that you're performing confidence to hide insecurity, that eventually the mask will crack and they'll be proven right. But months will pass, then years, and your peace will remain, your confidence will deepen, your relationship will continue to grow while theirs stagnates or crumbles. And they'll never admit they were wrong about you, they'll just stop talking about it and quietly resent the fact that you found something they couldn't. This peace is your reward. After everything you survived, every toxic relationship you endured, every heartbreak that nearly destroyed you, every moment you questioned if you'd ever find something real, this peace is what you earned. It's not luck. It's not timing. It's the natural result of refusing to settle and doing the work on yourself until you became the kind of person who could attract and maintain healthy love. The universe doesn't hand out random blessings. It responds to your energy, your standards, your refusal to accept less than you deserve. You stopped accepting chaos and started demanding peace. The universe heard you. This relationship is the answer. And the quiet confidence you carry now is just you finally understanding that you deserve everything you're experiencing. People who never did the work to deserve better will never understand why you're so certain about your choice. They're still operating from a place of scarcity, believing they have to settle for whatever shows up because that's all that's available. You're operating from abundance, knowing that the right person was worth waiting for and that nothing less would have satisfied the version of you that finally knew your worth. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. And they can call it whatever they want while you continue living in the peace they'll spend their whole lives searching for. Number 11, this is only the start of what shocks them. Everything we've talked about, every revelation, every shift, every uncomfortable truth, all of it is just the foundation. Your next relationship is going to shock everyone, not because of what it is right now, but because of what it's going to become. Most people's relationships peak during the honeymoon phase and then slowly decline into comfortable cohabitation or toxic routine. Yours is different. Yours is starting from a place of mutual healing, genuine compatibility, and aligned values. That means instead of declining, it's going to compound. It's going to deepen. It's going to become more solid, more passionate, more fulfilling as time goes on. And that defies everything most people understand about long-term relationships. They're used to passion fading, connection weakening, taking each other for granted. They've normalized the slow death of romance that comes with familiarity, but you two are building something different. Something that gets better with age instead of stale with time. The shock isn't going to be a one-time reaction when people first find out who you're with. It's going to be an ongoing amazement as they watch your relationship continue to thrive while others around you fall apart. They're going to watch you hit the 1-year mark still looking at each other the same way you did in month 1. They're going to see you navigate challenges together instead of letting problems drive you apart. They're going to witness you supporting each other's growth instead of feeling threatened by it. They're going to observe you maintaining your individual identities while building a shared life. And every milestone is going to chip away at their cynicism about love, while simultaneously making them more bitter about their own situations. Your relationship isn't just going to shock them once. It's going to continue shocking them by refusing to follow the script they're familiar with. The script where passion dies, where resentment builds, where people stay together out of obligation rather than genuine desire. You're writing a different story, and every chapter is going to make them question the story they're living. 5 years from now, when you two are still choosing each other, still growing together, still genuinely happy in each other's presence, the people who doubted you are going to have to confront an uncomfortable truth. They were wrong. Their criticism was projection. Their concern was really jealousy. Their warnings were actually their own fears about commitment and vulnerability dressed up as wisdom. And most of them won't admit it. They'll quietly remove themselves from your life, unable to be around the constant reminder that they settled when they could have waited. Or they'll stay close but stop commenting on your relationship, letting their silence speak the apology they'll never vocalize. Either way, you win. You get the relationship. They get the lesson. The universe balances everything eventually. 10 years from now, when marriages around you are falling apart and people are getting divorced from their safe choices, your relationship is going to be stronger than ever. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Because it's built on a foundation that can weather storms. Because you both chose each other from a place of wholeness, rather than a place of need. That's the difference between relationships that last and relationships that just persist. Yours has roots, theirs have routines. Yours has depth, theirs have duty. Yours has conscious choice, theirs have sunk costs. The person you're about to meet, or maybe the person you just met, or possibly the person you're with right now reading this and finally understanding why it feels so different, this person is going to change your entire perception of what relationships can be. They're going to show you that love doesn't have to hurt to be real, that peace doesn't mean boring, that healthy doesn't mean lacking passion, that stable doesn't mean stagnant. They're going to rewrite every limiting belief you held about romance, partnership, and long-term compatibility. And everyone who knew the old you, the one who dated disasters and called it destiny, they're going to watch this transformation in complete shock. Because they never expected you to figure it out. They never expected you to break the pattern. They never expected you to find someone who actually deserves you. But here you are. Here they are. And here's the future you're building together that's going to make everyone question why they settled for less. If you made it this far, if you felt every word of this in your bones like it was written specifically for your situation, then you're exactly who this message was meant for. You're the chosen one, stepping into a relationship that the universe has been preparing for longer than you realize. Your past wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every failed relationship was eliminating someone who couldn't handle your final form. Every heartbreak was building immunity so the right person wouldn't scare you away. Every moment you spent alone was teaching you how to be whole so you could meet your person as an equal rather than as someone searching for completion. This is your time, this is your person, this is your story entering the chapter everyone's been waiting for. Drop 777 in the comments if you feel this shift happening in your life right now. Hit that like button and subscribe because this is only the beginning of the content. that's going to help you navigate this relationship everyone's going to have an opinion about. Share this with the person you know needs to hear it, whether that's the person you're with or the person who's still waiting for their right person to appear. And remember, the shock everyone feels isn't your concern. Your peace is your only priority. Let them be surprised. Let them be confused. Let them be uncomfortable with your happiness. While they're processing their reactions, you'll be too busy living a love story they convince themselves doesn't exist. Welcome to the life you always deserved, chosen one. The universe knew what it was doing all along. Trust the process, enjoy the shock, and never, ever apologize for finding exactly what you were looking for.